In the heart of Lagos, behind high walls and iron gates, stood a mansion that glittered like gold, but inside, Mr. Adewale sat alone. Once powerful, respected, and feared, he now felt like a shadow in his own home. His voice no longer echoed with authority. His laughter? A memory. He had everything, cars, companies, cash, but not connection. If you're just tuning in, please subscribe to African Tales by Victo, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us where you're watching from. This story will stay in your heart forever. So one morning, Mr. Adewale called a family doctor and whispered, "Tell them I can no longer walk." Within hours, the news spread. His wife, Remy, rushed in, tears in her eyes. His sons, Teo and Kunal, canceled business trips. His daughter, Ife, came home from school early. The mansion buzzed with concern. Food, trays, medicine, prayers. But Mr. Adewale sat quietly in his wheelchair, watching their eyes. Were they worried for him, or for what he left behind? He wasn't sick. He wasn't broken. He was testing something far deeper than muscle or bone. He was testing the heart. For the first week, everything felt warm. Remy, his wife, fed him with her own hands. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "You'll get through this, my love." Teo, the eldest son, promised to take over company meetings. "Just until you're strong again, Dad," he said, smiling. Kunal, the younger one, brought new gifts every day. "Look what I got you, Pops," he laughed, placing a new wristwatch on his father's paralyzed hand. Even Ife, his little princess, stopped going to parties. She sat beside him, reading stories like she used to when she was a child. But Mr. Adewale watched closely. He saw how Remy's hands trembled when she wiped his mouth. He noticed Teo always asked about the business first, before asking how he felt. He caught Kunal in the hallway once, laughing on the phone. He can't even talk back. What's he going to do? And Ife, she avoided his eyes now. The mansion was full of voices, but they echoed like lies. He began to feel something colder than paralysis. He felt forgotten in plain sight. Still, he said nothing. This was only the beginning. The masks hadn't fallen off yet, but he knew they would. By the third week, the mansion grew quiet. The excitement was gone. Remy stopped cooking for him. Now it was the maid Aisha who brought his meals, quietly, without a word of complaint. Teo barely visited. He was too busy at the office. Kunal only showed up when he needed his father's signature. And Ife? She stayed locked in her room, headphones on, pretending none of this was happening. One night, as the house grew silent, Mr. Adewale wheeled himself to the edge of the hallway. Slowly, silently. That's when he heard it. Laughter. Not joy, but mockery. "I'm telling you, Teo," Ife's voice whispered. "He's as good as dead. How long are we going to keep pretending?" Mr. Adewale's heart sank. He held his breath. "I don't care," Teo replied. "Once we get the company papers sorted, you'll never have to see his face again." The words cut deeper than any knife. In that moment, something in him died. He wasn't their father anymore. He was just a throne waiting to be taken. But still, he said nothing, because the truth he was digging for, he was finding it, piece by painful piece. While the others drifted away, one soul remained constant, Aisha. She was just a housemaid, quiet, gentle, always in the background. But now, she stepped forward. Each morning, she helped him sit up. She wiped his face with warm water and tucked a soft cloth behind his neck. She spoke little, but her hands were kind. One day, as she fed him spoon by spoon, Mr. Adewale asked softly, "Why do you do all this?" Aisha smiled. "Because you are still alive, sir. And a living man deserves dignity." He blinked, holding back tears. No one else had spoken to him like a human in weeks. Later that afternoon, he saw her slip out quietly. When she returned, she held a small paper bag with oranges and bananas. "I use my market money," she said shyly. "You need fresh fruit." He couldn't believe it. A girl who earned barely enough to survive bought him fruit, not for profit, not for inheritance, but for love. In a mansion full of gold, diamonds, and lies, it was this girl Luce shone the brightest. And for the first time in weeks, Mr. Adewale smiled. A real, deep, grateful smile. By the end of the first month, the masks had begun to crack. Teo now spoke openly about taking over the company. "I've handled more deals in a week than Dad did in a year," he boasted to Remy during dinner. Remy didn't argue. She simply sipped her wine, staring into the distance. Cunnel, frustrated, shouted one night, "Why does Teo get to run everything? I'm his son, too." Ife rolled her eyes and said, "You two are acting like vultures waiting for a corpse." And Remy? She just said coldly, "Let's not pretend. If this is permanent, we need a plan." Mr. Adewale sat in his wheelchair outside the dining room, just around the corner, listening. They no longer lowered their voices. They no longer pretended. The truth poured out, bitter, greedy, loud. He clutched the arms of his wheelchair. These were the people he built his empire for, the people he thought would stand by him in sickness and in health. But now, they were tearing each other apart, and he hadn't even died. He wasn't invisible anymore. He was in the way. And suddenly, the silence of paralysis became louder than any scream. That night, long after the house had gone quiet, Mr. Adewale couldn't sleep. The words he'd overheard replayed in his mind like a haunting echo. They wanted him gone, his own blood. But just when his heart felt the heaviest, he heard something soft, something gentle, coming from the kitchen. A voice. He wheeled himself quietly toward the sound. It was Aisha. She was on her knees, eyes closed, hands raised to the ceiling. "Please, God, give Baba strength. Heal him if it's your will. And if not, give me the heart to serve him with joy. He deserves peace." Mr. Adewale's breath caught in his throat. No one had prayed for him. Not his wife, not his children. Only her. And she didn't know he was listening. She wasn't doing it to impress anyone. Her voice cracked with emotion. Her hands trembled. But her words, they were purer. When she rose to her feet, she wiped her tears with the corner of her wrapper, unaware that someone had seen her heart in its truest form. That night, Mr. Adewale didn't sleep because of sorrow. He didn't sleep because, for the first time, he felt loved. 2 months had passed, and the mansion that once felt like a palace now felt like a courtroom. Every conversation was laced with suspicion. One evening, Remy called a family meeting in the living room. The children sat in silence, eyes darting. "We need to talk about the will," she began. "If anything happens to your father, we need to ensure the company and properties are properly managed," she added, glancing at Teo. Cunnel spoke up. "You mean make sure you get what you want?" Teo clenched his fists. "Don't start." Ife stood. "We haven't even buried him, and you're already fighting for pieces." Mr. Adewale was just around the corner, listening in his wheelchair, heart pounding. He wasn't dead. He was right there. And still, they were carving up his life like meat at a table. That night, he went to his private study. Inside a locked drawer was a sealed brown envelope, his original will. He opened it. Then he brought out a blank page. The time had come to write a new story. One that would reward the heart, not the blood. And this time, they would never see it coming. The next morning, while the household bustled with plans and petty arguments, Mr. Adewale made a quiet call. "Barrister Duro," he said in a firm tone, "come to the mansion today." Within hours, the trusted family lawyer arrived. He was shocked to see Mr. Adewale sitting alone in the study. "You're awake?" "I was never asleep," Mr. Adewale replied, coldly. "Let's write a new will." Barrister Duro nodded slowly. "And who should inherit?" A moment passed. Then Mr. Adewale smiled. "Half of everything, the estate, the stocks, the shares, goes to Aisha, the maid." The lawyer froze. "Sir, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He reached into a drawer and pulled out her photo, Aisha in her faded uniform, holding a bowl of fruit. "She gave me love, when even my own blood gave me nothing." The documents were drawn up. Mr. Adewale signed with a steady hand. By sunset, everything was sealed, locked away in a safe behind the study bookshelf. The storm was coming, and soon the family would learn You can't fake love. You can't steal loyalty. And when the truth finally stands, lies will fall like ashes. Days turned into weeks, and the silence in the mansion became unbearable. No more get-well-soon cards. No more concerned voices. Now, Mr. Adewale sat alone by the window, listening to the family tear each other apart downstairs. I should be the CO. Teo shouted one evening. I'm the one handling things while you play boss. Colonel snapped back. You're both idiots, Aoife muttered. Mums would take it all anyway. Remy clapped her hands loudly. Enough! Your father can't speak. He can't walk. We must do what's best for this family. Mr. Adewale turned away from the window. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from rage. They hadn't asked how he felt in over a month. They hadn't touched his hand, shared a smile, or even said good morning. He had become furniture, useful only in silence, except for Aisha. She still came in daily. She still sang softly while sweeping. She still smiled when no one else did. That night, as she helped him into bed, he whispered, Thank you. Aisha paused, surprised. For what, sir? For not changing when the rest of the world did. And in that quiet moment, the decision became final. It was almost time. Aisha had no idea what was coming. She continued her routine, cleaning, cooking, caring, like nothing had changed. But something had changed. One morning, she entered the study to dust and found the door slightly open. Inside, Mr. Adewale sat upright, staring at the safe on the wall. She stepped in gently. Do you need anything, sir? He looked at her with tired eyes. Yes, Aisha. Sit with me. She obeyed, confused. You've taken care of me better than my own family, he said. Her eyes widened. But I'm just the maid. No, he whispered. You're the only one who sees me, not my money. A long silence followed. Then, slowly, he reached into the drawer and brought out a letter in a brown envelope. Don't open this yet, he said. But when I ask, you'll give it to Barrister Duro. Aisha held the envelope like it was glass. Sir, why me? Because I trust you. Her hands trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. That night, while the others argued over business and cars, Aisha sat alone in her room, holding the envelope close. She didn't understand what was inside, but somehow she knew it would change everything. Mr. Adewale had seen enough. The whispers, the greed, the betrayal. Now it was time to reveal the truth, not with words, but with action. He called Aisha early one morning. I need you to help me get to the living room. Don't call anyone else. She nodded. Together, they moved slowly through the mansion, past polished floors and portraits of family that had already buried him in their hearts. Once seated, he said, Tell them I want to see everyone. No excuses. By afternoon, the whole family gathered. Remy looked annoyed. Teo and Colonel glanced at their watches. Aoife chewed gum, arms folded. What now? Teo muttered. He can't even talk. Mr. Adewale stared at them all, expression blank. Then he dropped a spoon from his lap. Remy sighed and waved at Aisha. Pick that up for him. But Aisha didn't move. Instead, she looked at Mr. Adewale and smiled, because she knew what was coming. Slowly, painfully, deliberately, Mr. Adewale stood up. The room froze. Remy gasped. Teo stumbled back. Colonel whispered, Is this a dream? And Aoife? She dropped her phone. The king had risen, and judgment was just beginning. Silence filled the mansion like a storm waiting to strike. Mr. Adewale stood tall, his spine straight, eyes burning with fire. Remy clutched her chest. You can walk? Yes, he said. His voice, calm but sharp, cut through the air like a blade. I've been able to walk all along. Teo took a step forward. Wait, what is this? A trick? No, Mr. Adewale replied. A test. He walked slowly around the room, stopping in front of each of them. I wanted to see who loved me, not my money. He turned to Remy. You stopped touching me. Stopped looking at me. All you saw was your future slipping away. To Teo, you tried to snatch the company before I even left it. To Colonel, You mocked me when you thought I couldn't hear. To Ife, you called me a corpse while I sat alive in the next room. His voice grew louder. This was never about my legs. It was about your hearts. Everyone stared, speechless, ashamed. But he wasn't done. He turned to Aisha. She stood quietly, eyes wide. And you? He smiled. You passed. Then he reached into his pocket, and the room held its breath. From his coat pocket, Mr. Adewale pulled out the brown envelope, the same one Aisha had guarded with her life. He looked at her and said gently, "Bring me Barrister Duro." Aisha nodded and rushed out. The room remained frozen. Teo whispered, "What's in that envelope?" Cunnell's voice cracked. It's the will, isn't it?" Remy's eyes widened. No, he wouldn't. Moments later, the lawyer arrived, briefcase in hand. He greeted everyone, but his eyes quickly moved to Mr. Adewale, and then to the envelope. "Do you wish to proceed, sir?" he asked. Mr. Adewale nodded. Barrister Duro took a deep breath and opened the envelope. "This document," he announced, "is a new will. Signed. Witness. Legal." The room shook. He continued, reading aloud. 50% of Mr. Adewale's total estate, including company shares, real estate, and liquid assets, shall be transferred to one individual, Aisha Yusuf. Gasps. Screams. Teo stood. "This is madness." Cunnell yelled, "She's a maid." Remy shouted, "You're ruining this family." But Mr. Adewale raised a hand. "I'm not ruining anything. I'm rewarding the only one who loved me with nothing to gain." And that was final. Chaos exploded in the mansion. Teo stormed toward Aisha. "You think you deserve this? You wash plates." Cunnell shouted, "She bewitched him. That's what this is." Ife screamed, "We're his children. We're blood." But Mr. Adewale stood firm, his face like stone. "You all speak of blood," he said, "but you drain mine dry." Remy turned, trembling with rage. "So you humiliated us for her?" He looked at her with tired eyes. "No, I exposed you for who you truly are." Aisha stood still, frightened, clutching her wrapper. She never asked for any of this. Barrister Duro cleared his throat. "The will is final, legally binding. Any attempts to contest it will be difficult." Remy sank into the couch, face pale. Teo sat down, shaking. Ife covered her face, tears streaming. Cunnell punched the wall. But Aisha? She looked at Mr. Adewale with tearful eyes and said softly, "Why me, sir?" He replied, "Because when I had nothing, you gave me something. You gave me dignity. And you, Aisha, reminded me that real love does still exist. In that room full of money, noise, and broken hearts, only one person stood with grace. Aisha sat alone in the small servants' quarters that night, holding the will in her trembling hands. She hadn't touched the food the cook brought her. She hadn't even changed out of her uniform. She just sat, overwhelmed. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not because of the wealth, but because of the weight. "This wasn't meant for me," she whispered. In her heart, she was still the girl who scrubbed floors and whispered prayers into empty rooms. Now, she was the heir to a fortune. Suddenly, there was a knock on her door. It was Mr. Adewale. She stood quickly, wiping her face. "Sir, forgive me." He raised his hand gently. "No need." He entered the small room, looked around the bare walls, the single bed, the broken fan. "You've lived like this for years?" She nodded, ashamed. He sat beside her. "This was never about giving you riches," he said softly. "It was about giving you honor. You gave me your heart, so I gave you mine." Aisha wept quietly. That night, no titles mattered, no papers, no power. Just two people, one old and broken, the other young and kind, healing each other with simple truth. The next morning, the house was different. Cold stairs, slammed doors, silent meals. Remy didn't speak to Mr. Adewale, not even a glance. Teo walked past Aisha like she was air. Cunnell muttered insults under his breath. House girl turned princess. Disgrace. Ife posted a cryptic message online. Asterisk, blood means nothing when greed takes over. Asterisk. But Mr. Adewale expected this. He had shaken their foundation, exposed their love for what it really was. Conditional. Later that day, Remy barged into the study. "You humiliated me," she hissed, "in front of our children, our friends, the world." Mr. Adewale looked up calmly. "No, Remy, you did that all by yourself." She clenched her fists. "This isn't over." "Then keep fighting," he replied. "But know this, I may have tested you with silence, but I'm watching now with eyes wide open." That night, Teo met secretly with Cunnel. "We need to stop her," Teo whispered. "We'll make her give it up, one way or another." And just like that, the battle began. Not for love, not for family, but for power. And at the center of it all, unknowingly, stood Aisha, the girl who only ever wanted to serve. Aisha was in the garden, trimming flowers, her favorite place to escape, but peace wouldn't last. Teo and Cunnel approached her, fake smiles hiding their fury. "Sister Aisha," Teo said, voice too smooth, "you've come far." Cunnel added, "We just want to talk as family." She stood slowly. "I'm listening." Teo stepped closer. "That we are holding on to, you don't need it." Aisha frowned. "I never asked for it." "Good," Cunnel replied, his tone turning sharp. "Then you won't mind giving it up." She looked between them. "Is this a threat?" Cunnel leaned in. "It's a warning. You don't belong in our world. Be smart, walk away." Teo added, "Take a little, disappear, or we'll make life very difficult." Aisha held her breath. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't blink. "I'm not here for your money," she said quietly, "but I won't let you bully me." She turned and walked away, heart pounding. From his study window, Mr. Adewale had seen everything, and in that moment, something snapped in him. They had crossed the line. The test was over. Now it was time to clean house. The next morning, Mr. Adewale called for one last family meeting. Everyone gathered, tight-lipped, tense, and tired. Remy arrived in sunglasses, hiding her shame. Teo and Cunnel leaned against the wall, arms folded, still fuming. Aoife sat on the couch, phone in hand, but her eyes didn't move. Aisha stood by the doorway, unsure she belonged. Mr. Adewale cleared his throat. "This house, this family is broken." No one spoke. "I gave you everything. But the moment I had nothing, your hearts showed me who you truly are." Remy scoffed. "We made sacrifices, too." "No," he cut in. "You made plans to replace me." He stood firm and slow. "I gave Aisha half of everything not because she asked, but because she gave without asking." He turned to Teo and Cunnel. "You threatened her. I saw it." Their faces turned red. "You wanted power, but you lost your soul." Then he looked to Aoife. "You hid behind silence, thinking that made you innocent. It didn't." His voice trembled, not from weakness, but from pain. "Today, I'm not dividing my wealth. I'm dividing the truth. And from now on, only those who walk in truth will walk with me." The room fell silent. The mansion, once full of noise and luxury, now echoed with one thing: silence. One by one, they began to leave. Remy packed her designer bags without a word. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just walked out, head high, heart hollow. Teo and Cunnel drove off the same day, their faces red with shame and resentment. No hugs, no apologies, no goodbye. Aoife stood at the front door for a long moment. She looked back at her father. I didn't know how to speak up," she whispered. Mr. Adewale's eyes softened. "Then learn, because silence protects the wrong people." She nodded slowly, then left. Now it was just him and Aisha. The house felt emptier, but lighter that evening. Aisha brought him a plate of food like always. She placed it before him and turned to leave, but he stopped her. "Sit." She sat. "Thank you," he said, "not for staying, but for never changing." She smiled shyly. "You gave me more than money, sir. You gave me value." And for the first time in months, Mr. Adewale felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, not because he had wealth, but because he had finally found truth. Weeks passed. The mansion, once filled with footsteps of betrayal, now echoed with peace. No more shouting, no more pretending, just calm. One morning, Mr. Adewale stepped onto the balcony, watching the sun rise. The city below buzzed softly, but his heart was still. Aisha walked up behind him, now dressed not as a maid, but as the woman who earned a place of honor. "I don't know what to do with all this," she said, eyes on the horizon. "You don't have to do everything," he replied. "Just do it with heart." They sat together, sipping tea, two people from different worlds, now bound by truth. Later that day, Mr. Adewale called a press conference. Journalists gathered, expecting drama. But instead, he said, "I pretended to be paralyzed, and in that weakness, I discovered strength. Not mine, but hers." He turned to Aisha beside him. This woman, once overlooked, showed me loyalty, kindness, and love. Today, she becomes my partner, not in name, but in legacy. Cameras flashed, but Mr. Adewale didn't care. He had tested the hearts of many, and in the end, it was the quietest one that beat the loudest. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this message. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and what act of kindness inspired you today. Thanks for being part of this journey. Until next time, remember, even the smallest act of kindness can change a life.